So what if you could see a country, not through the eyes of a news anchor, but through a constant, unfiltered stream of events, just pinned to a map? Well, today we're diving into exactly that, a live news map. We're going to see what it reveals about a nation in just a single 24-hour period. And trust me, it's a snapshot that might just change how you see the news.
I mean, think about it for a second. You've got your polished nightly broadcast, right? Or your curated social media feed, a traditional newspaper. Every single one of those tells a slightly different story. Today, we're exploring one of the most direct and, raw formats out there just to see what kind of story it tells.
So this source we're looking at, it calls itself an open data-driven media platform that covers security and conflict reports around the world. What does that actually mean? Well, basically, it just sucks in news reports, social media posts, official alerts, you name it, and it pins them to a map as they happen. There's no anchor, there's no commentary, just a stream of raw information.
All right, to really get a feel for how this whole thing works, we're going to zoom way in on one city, Minneapolis, and see the story that this live map told over one single, pretty intense 24-hour period.
Okay, so according to this feed, Minneapolis is completely consumed by one issue, a huge protest centered on federal immigration enforcement, specifically ICE. And this protest, well, it becomes the anchor for a story that just spirals fast.
And here's where you really start to see the unfiltered nature of this thing. This isn't some summary. This is a direct headline from the feed itself. The language is raw, it's definitely charged, and it immediately paints a picture of a really tense, escalating situation from a very, very specific viewpoint.
And check this out, another headline from the same feed from just a few hours earlier. Again, just notice the direct and really intense language. You've got words like violent, assaulting, attacking, all used to describe the events. It's building this narrative of a city right on the brink of chaos.
And the escalation is just incredibly rapid. I mean, look at how quickly this all unfolds. 23 hours ago, we get reports of assaults. Just 2 hours later, police blockades and reports of protesters using frozen water bottles as weapons. Okay, now fast forward to just 3 hours ago, and the feed is talking about a hostile mob and bomb threats. And then in the last hour, the whole story goes national. The federal government starts preparing troops, and the feed reports armed individuals standing guard. It's literally a minute-by-minute picture of rising tension.
So here's the crucial point, the scale of that response. That preparation for mobilization we just saw? Yeah, it's not small. According to the source, the federal government is prepping as many as 1,500 troops for a potential deployment to Minnesota. So in less than a day, what started as a local protest has escalated, at least on this feed, to the point of a major federal military response.
Okay, so while Minneapolis was at the center of this absolute firestorm, what was happening everywhere else? Let's zoom out and take a look at the feed for two other massive states, Texas and California, during the exact same time period. All right, so in Arlington, Texas, the feed flags a structure fire. You know, it's a serious local emergency, firefighters on the scene of a townhome, heavy smoke, but it's a totally self-contained event.
Meanwhile, over in Fairfield, California, the map shows a completely unrelated tragedy, a fatal wrong-way crash on the highway. A devastating event for sure, but again, entirely local in its scope.
Jump back to Texas, and another pin drops on the map. Dallas police are investigating a fatal shooting. It's just another isolated local crime report floating in a sea of data points.
Then, over in Visalia, California, another local incident. Police arrest a woman who was reportedly holding a knife. A contained police matter that just briefly appears on this national feed before it disappears back into the noise. And the feed just keeps on scrolling. Back in Texas, another fatal crash is reported. These are the steady, kind of relentless emergencies that are happening every single day all across the country.
And finally, in California, a minor 2.5 magnitude earthquake is reported. It's so small it's barely noticeable, but it still makes the feed, sitting right there alongside everything else we just saw.
So what do we actually see when we put these two different views side by side? It's pretty stark, right? On one hand, you have a single city completely consumed by a political firestorm. And on the other hand, you just have the background noise of life and emergencies happening across two massive states.
And this really gets to the core contrast. The Minneapolis feed, it's a focused conflict. One city, one political theme, a clear, escalating story that leads to a national response. But the Texas and California feeds, they show scattered crises,
Multiple cities, all kinds of different local issues, totally fragmented reports and purely local responses. It's two completely different portraits of a nation presented by the exact same source at the exact same time.
So what does this specific lens, this live, unfiltered map, actually show us in the end? What's the real takeaway from looking at the world this way?
Well, this view is, by its very nature, raw and unfiltered. It's going to show you exactly where things are happening with some serious geographic precision, but, and this is a big but, it often lacks the broader context you'd get from a news article. It also just throws major and minor events right next to each other, putting a huge political crisis right beside a tiny earthquake with absolutely no sense of scale. And you know, that might be the most powerful insight here. This kind of feed presents a nation where two different realities are existing at the very same time. You've got these singular, intense flashpoints that seem to consume an entire area, while everywhere else, life just goes on with this constant low-level hum of everyday emergencies.
And all of that leaves us with one final question to think about. When a national crisis and a local car crash are presented side by side with the same exact weight on the same exact map, how does that unfiltered, uncurated view change our own perception of what's truly important?